What if I told you that everything you've been taught about aging, fatigue, and declining health is a lie? That there's a treatment so powerful, it took me from burnt out and functioning at only 50% of my capacity to 130% optimization across every system in my body in just one session. But your doctor will never tell you about it because it's not available in the US. And I just returned from Colombia, where I underwent a specific stem cell treatment that's already reversing my brain fog, regrowing my hair, and turning back the biological clock. This isn't science fiction. This is the future of human optimization, and I'm about to tell you exactly how you can access it. Now, if you know my story, I'd been struggling with my health challenges for close to 8 years. Nothing that doctors could really put their finger on, and the symptoms were literally destroying my quality of life. I was having brain fog that made me feel like I was literally living in a two-dimensional reality. I would go to Costco and get overwhelmed by the amount of things on the shelf because I just could not cognitively process things fast enough. I had intense anxiety despite all the personal development work that I've done, all the mindset and spiritual growth work that I've done, and I just could not seem to shake it. I had trouble sleeping. I had an insomnia that left me exhausted, but still feeling really amped up and wired. Physical aches and pains throughout my body with neuropathy and nerve irritation and a cluster of mysterious symptoms like skipped heartbeats and heart palpitations. And the challenge was overwhelming. And every day was a grind. And even though I was doing what I love, I literally just could not wait each day to crash because I was so tired. And that's when I decided at one point to take control of my own health. I have another episode recently I recorded about this. I started working with ChatGPT. I shared with it my symptoms, and it told me what tests I needed to run. So I went and ran all those tests, and when I got the results, I uploaded them all into ChatGPT and I started cross-referencing all the data. And the diagnosis was really shocking. It basically said that I was in burnout. And it built this recovery plan for me. And one of the central things that it suggested would be a game changer were stem cells. I want to take a moment to explain or talk about stem cells and the difference most people don't understand about stem cell treatments. So in the US, you can get stem cell treatments. And what they do is they basically extract your own stem cells and they re-inject those stem cells into you, which can be helpful. But if you're already 50 years old, you're putting 50-year-old stem cells back into your body. What's also available are called mesenchymal or wart jelly stem cells. And these are day zero stem cells, which are available internationally. And so they're available in places like Colombia or Panama or Costa Rica or Mexico. These were actually available up until around 2019 in the US when the FDA effectively banned mesenchymal stem cells, stating that they couldn't be approved because there was no clinically proven efficacy. Now, you can have the conversation with yourself. How many other medications are there out there when you actually look at the clinical data and see that they aren't effective, but they're on the market? But they effectively disallowed mesenchymal stem cells. The question is, why are people flocking to other countries and paying big dollars to actually get them? Well, I'll tell you what my experience was. I was at about 50 to 60% function in the major systems of my body. Now, these were really the fringe systems that most people don't really pay attention to. I mean, not everybody's, checking out their mitochondrial function or their neurotransmitter function or their hormonal function. If you go into your standard general practitioner, they aren't running any of these kinds of tests. They're running your standard CBC blood panel, maybe looking a little deeper beyond that. But my cardiovascular health was good. My standard blood tests were perfect. But in these systems that sort of go undetected unless you're doing some deep work with alternative or functional medicine doctors, I was at about 50 to 60%. And what ChatGPT indicated was that with just one round of IV stem cells, it predicted I would get back into the 90% to 130% range. So not only recovering where I had lost ground and experiencing wear and tear, but actually getting out ahead of where my body could even get naturally at my age, right? I turn 50 in the next couple of weeks, and out ahead of 99% of people in terms of my overall health. And I asked ChatGPT, hey, why do I feel so terrible if other people are even more dysfunctional than I am? And the answer was shocking. It said, that's because most people are on an average of 4 to 6 pharmaceutical medications to mask their symptoms. And they're so checked out on social media and drugs and alcohol that they don't even know how bad they feel. But because you're sensitive and aware, which is a great thing, you're feeling it more than most people and you aren't masking the symptoms. And think about how crazy that is. How sick our society is right now that we're so checked out of the relationship with our body and how we feel. And then numbed out as a result of the medications we use to mask the symptoms rather than get to the root cause, most people don't even understand how sick they are. I could barely get through a day without having to do some meditation or breath work or a cold plunge or something to stabilize and try to reset my nervous system. And most people are actually much more dysfunctional than I am, but don't even know it. So this was really simple and straightforward for me. I did some research. I found a place called Bio Accelerator in Medellin, Colombia. There are a lot of places out there that you can go to. This is where I chose to go. There are a lot of professional athletes, UFC fighters go there for repair of their joints, their back, their neck. I actually not only wanted the systemic IVs, but I wanted to get some IVs in my shoulder. I had torn my shoulder twice. And I had done some localized stem cell injections back in 2017 and actually healed my left shoulder without having to have a shoulder repair surgery for a second time. But I was still having some pain. And so I wanted to get some orthopedic injections as well. And while I was there, I saw miracles. I met 3 spinal cord injury victims. 2 of them were firefighters who had injuries on the job. They couldn't walk. They were bound to a wheelchair. They were told by some of the best doctors in the States that they would never walk again. And all 3 of them were walking. It was actually unbelievable. And they were walking after their second treatment of mesenchymal stem cells along their spine. And so this place was more advanced than any doctor's office I've ever been to. They had hyperbaric chambers, ozone therapy, cryotherapy. A lot of what allows the stem cells to work optimally is reducing inflammation in your body before you go into the treatment and after the treatment. Because most of us are so inflamed, and the stem cells, I'm going to tell you about how they work here in a moment, will actually go after the inflammation and start repairing areas that are inflamed, that you don't want to waste your stem cells on areas that are inflamed that you can actually control. So they've got a lot of anti-inflammatory therapies there. They recommend you eat an anti-inflammatory diet. You quit smoking, you give up coffee, anything that will create an inflammatory reaction. I know you're saying, like, give up coffee. What are you talking about? I'd rather just keep my illness and drudge through every day than give up my coffee is what allows me to get through the day. No. You give up the things that are creating inflammation so that your stem cells can actually find the really root cause areas in your body that need support. They also had a laboratory on site. I'd never seen this before, where they actually source the stem cells from the cord blood during the birth process of mothers in Colombia. They test them all, screening out any type of drug use, screening out any type of diseases. And then they actually use the stem cells before they go into your body and make sure that those stem cells can replicate across all the major tissue, bone, and organ cell structures. Make sure these things actually work in your body. So pretty amazing to see their laboratory and insane personal attention. You ever go to a doctor's office and you're waiting like 2 hours for the doctor? Like, first of all, I don't know how you could ever run a business like that. I could never run a business like that. Could you imagine me showing up 2 hours late for a coaching session or showing up 2 hours late for one of my seminars? Now, for those of you who've been to my seminars, you probably know I don't always run on time. But you get my point. Like, the fact that that business called medicine is allowed to function that way is unbelievable. But not here. Here, you've got a full schedule, a full agenda, everybody's on time, personal concierge, everything that you need. So I want to explain to you for a moment about what stem cells do in your body. So there's a 3-phase process. And really, in the first 3 weeks, there's an inflammatory response. So in the first 3 weeks, the stem cells are actually going into your body and they're finding areas of dysfunction and they're creating an inflammatory response. Why? Because your body actually responds to the inflammatory response. So it activates your immune, healing, and systems processes in these areas that need repair. So in the first 3 weeks, you actually feel a little bit worse than before you went in. I had body aches and pains. My brain fog was a little bit more intense. I felt like I had kind of a cold or a flu. But after those 3 weeks, I started to feel better. It goes into a remodeling response. These cells can literally remodel based off of any type of cell in your body. So if you're having gut issues, they go into your gut, they create inflammation, and then they start to actually become cells with optimal function that you need and actually restore your gut. Same thing in your nervous system, your mitochondrial function, everywhere in your body, your brain. They essentially go through and clean up all kinds of dysfunction and inflammation. And as I mentioned, in addition to systemic IVs, I also got it orthopedically in my shoulder so they could rebuild my shoulder tissue and my cartilage and even bone. And then as it starts to improve, all the systems of your body, your immune system, your mitochondrial function, you're able to then address more easily some of the other things that might be sitting on top of it, like viruses, bacteria, parasites, microorganisms. And so in weeks 4 through 10, it begins to remodel. And in weeks 10 to 26, it starts to rebuild. So most people experience the greatest benefit between months 3 and month 6. But I can tell you, we're only about 6 weeks in right now, and my wife's hip pain is completely gone. My wife has been struggling with hip pain for the last 5 years, could barely walk, gone, completely gone. I would say my shoulder discomfort is probably 70% improved already. There are motions and movements that I couldn't make 6 weeks ago that I can make now without any pain. And it's just going to continue to get better and better because it overhauls the entire system at the root level. And so my experience in the first 6 weeks is my sleep is dramatically improved. My brain fog is about 90% gone. Most of the aches and pains that I had in my body are completely gone. And then there were some unexpected physical changes. Like in some of the areas where I was starting to lose hair on my head in the front here, if you're watching on YouTube, it's actually growing back. And not only that, it's no longer white, but it's turning dark again, which is pretty crazy. We discovered that because my wife noticed it. She came and she started rubbing my face because I always have a 3-day shadow on my face, like a mini beard. And she thought it was dirt. And we realized, no, it's actually black hair that hadn't been on my face for a couple of years. But the biggest thing was the psychological impact in knowing that I'm actually getting better instead of the old story that I don't know what's wrong with me and nobody can figure it out. I actually believe I'm on my way to becoming in the best shape of my life right now. And that's a very different story than I don't know how much longer I'm going to live. To me, this is the most exciting thing about what we're learning about health, that nearly everything is fixable and without medication or surgery, whether it's neurodegenerative diseases, mitochondrial breakdown, gut issues, hormonal imbalances. You don't have to live with the problem forever. And I'm not saying that stem cells fix all this, but there's a lot of really amazing emerging technologies coming out there that are very exciting because they address the root cause at the systemic level. And so many of these problems get resolved once your body's functioning optimally again. Stem cells themselves are fairly unpredictable. If you do an IV, you don't really know where they're going to go, but they're phenomenal at prioritizing. You're injecting intelligence at the original level. If you think about it, right? The intelligence of your body is in the cells of your body because that's what you're made of, and you're getting brand new day zero cells. My wife joked, she said, well, you're officially Colombian now, because my wife is Colombian, and I had a stem cell donor who was Colombian. But they're great at prioritizing where the repair needs to happen. And so what we're learning is, we're not meant to decline with age. I asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, if I go execute on this 20-year longevity plan that you've developed for me, I want you to give me an estimate as to how long you think I'm going to live. And the response was shocking. The average estimate that it gave me low, medium, and high. The medium was 125 years old. And it said, but you know what? You're going to be able to potentially live longer than that because if you do these things now, if you take care of yourself, if you eat right, if you work out, if you supplement properly, if you understand how your body's functioning, if you run annual tests to continue to check in and make adjustments, and you're taking advantage of the best technologies out there, you're going to escape what it called age velocity. So you're not going to die of aging. So you could live a lot longer. And I think that actually changes the game on how we view our own lives. Imagine living 100, 125, 150 years vibrantly, and how that would change your perspective on your life right now. I know a lot of people are like, well, I'm already 50, I'm already 60, somebody said to me, well, you're turning 50, you're halfway through your life. I said, no, I'm not, I'm a third. I'm a third of the way through my life. 50 really is the new 30 when you understand that healing is possible. And that completely changes the way that you think about your mission, your impact, your business, what's possible, your bank account, your relationships. I think it's one of the most exciting things right now. And I think that it's something that you have to take seriously if you're wanting to achieve your full potential. Now, stem cells cost $20,000 to $30,000 on average. If you go to somewhere like Bio Accelerator, you can get it for cheaper if you go to other places. I think you need to do the research because you don't want to find, Dr. Juan with a bag of sugar water that's not actually stem cells, in Panama. And that's a lot of money for a lot of people. But you know what? Just decide that you're going to take advantage of this emerging health optimization space, and the money will flow to you. I talk about this in other episodes. It's like money doesn't flow to you to get you out of financial insecurity. Money flows to you for a vision. Allow a vision for an optimized health to draw the resources to you so that you can take advantage of these types of technologies too. right? And maybe you start with intervention in the beginning because you're feeling sick, but then go to prevention and optimization. I'm actually going back to Bio Accelerator in 6 months. This is going to be a part of my regular longevity program. Of course, do the research, find legitimate clinics, but this is the best investment that you can make, and it's an investment in your health. So if you love this episode and you're joining me on YouTube, do me a favor, leave me a comment, ask a question. I try to answer as many of them as possible. Hit the subscribe button and that bell icon so you get notifications when new episodes come out. If you're listening on the audio platforms, do the same thing. Subscribe, leave me a rating or review. And if you want to share this episode with someone, this is the way that we get this work out to even more people and we can be healthier together. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.